Hi everyone, my name is Christina and today I'm going to be speaking to you about diabetes. Let's talk and learn a little bit about diabetes. For all intents and purposes, this is information that I have researched. I am not a professional. I'm not um, certified or anything like that on this. This is just by um, personal experience through my family, taking care of a family member with this disease and what we have learned and how to take care of her. I do have permission from my grandma. She is 94 years old. She is a diabetic and she has been ever since she was 44 years old and now she's 94. So let's talk about a little more in general about what diabetes is, the types that there are, because it's not just, oh, you have diabetes and that's it. We have to talk about what kind of diabetes you have. We have an organ that's called the pancreas. It's usually around this area, and it provides insulin for our body because we do need glucose on our cells to create energy. That's what they eat. We eat the food, our body processes it, breaks it down, and then it converts it into sugar, and our cells absorb it. Insulin helps the cells absorb the sugar and the correct amounts in order for the cell to be fed properly, I guess, if you really want to think about it this way. So let's start off. There is different ranges. There's different websites. There's a lot of information you can get your hands on now that the internet is available. There researchers that say that there are from up to, I believe right now, 5 types of diabetes. Um, but we'll be talking mainly and breaking down a little bit more of the 3 main diabetes that are more commonly heard, that are more, I heard it from a neighbor, a relative, a friend, whatever the situation may be. We'll be talking about the more common one, less instead of the less rare kind. So the first one is type 1 diabetes. Usually that is called the juvenile type diabetes, and that's usually because children are the ones who get it, right? But the funny thing, or things that I personally did not know until I did a little more research, is that anybody at any time can actually get type 1 diabetes. But the most common, again, would be in young children. It would be in children, teens, young adults, even up to the age of, I don't know, 60, 65. But I guess the higher you are in the 60s, the more rare it is that you would get type 1. I guess it just depends. And this is a genetic disease, so there's not much you can do to help prevent it in that sense of I'm not getting it because it's in your genes and that's way out of our control. Type 2 diabetes is more in our control range. That would be more, it comes in a later in life, right? And that's just based on our eating habits, our lifestyle habits. A lot of people and more traditional and elderly folks say that also a big scare or a very big stressor can trigger diabetes. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but my grandma says that that's what's happened to her. So let's talk about a little bit of that one. So I'm sorry, going back to type 1. Type 1 is when your pancreas doesn't create the insulin anymore, right? So they have to be giving themselves insulin shots. Type 2 is when your pancreas doesn't create enough insulin or your body is insulin resistant. There's also another third type of diabetes, which is another common one, which you would see more in pregnancy. It's called gestational diabetes. And that one, what it is, while the woman is pregnant, she develops the diabetes, right? So during the pregnancy, they have to be monitoring, doing blood work, checking the sugar level, sometimes doing insulin, sometimes really strictly watching their meals. And for the most part, once the woman delivers the baby, in a little bit of time, the diabetes goes away. Now, what does that mean? That means that later in life, that female and that baby have a higher risk of developing diabetes in their lives. Which kind of diabetes? We don't know. Most likely, it just will depend. If the mom did not have it genetically, like type 1, it's most likely that the child and the mom would probably develop type 2 diabetes. Again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a professional, it's just information and what I understood from the research that I did. I also have linked a couple of websites and support group websites for more information about the types of diabetes, the things you can do, um, things we need to learn and educate ourselves and others in order to have a more healthier lifestyle, right? Just because one of the things that a lot of people see is, oh, that person's overweight, they have diabetes, they have diabetes. It's not true, because that person can be super skinny, like literally a stick. Person's a stick, right? Stick thin, and they have diabetes. So it's genetic, again, type 1 diabetes, or it's a pancreatic issue. Again, just because we see someone, don't assume something that we don't know, right? It could be that they're overweight for other reasons. It could be thyroid issues, and not necessarily diabetes, you know? But again, I'm not a professional. I'm just trying to help people understand a little bit from what I've learned, and so they don't stereotype people. So, one of the things my grandma said is that we've talked about is that nowadays there's so much information available that back then, sadly enough, there wasn't. And I guess that just happens with every disease. With time comes research and studying the progress of the disease and things we can do for it. That's how we learn how to help manage it. She was telling me that the doctor had told her when she was originally diagnosed when she was 44 years old. She's 94 now. So it was like 50 years ago, that they told her, you're pretty much going to die pretty soon because of it, because there's not a lot we can do for it or know too much about. She does come from a very small town, so I don't know, maybe it was just the person she got to see that day in the office or what it was. But I personally think that from the research that I've been doing, that she probably got this from gestational diabetes, because she had had a child like 5 years prior, 4 years prior to being diagnosed with the actual diabetes. She had a child. Later on, she became diabetic, and her child, around his 20s, early mm, early 20s or so, um, also became diabetic. So based just on those two puzzles and me putting them together and what I understand, again, I believe she just had the gestational diabetes, which later on developed, right? So there's, again, education. You need to have balanced meals. You need to have the right medication, the right dosages. Make sure your doctor is always aware of anything you do different from what they already know that you are currently doing. Um, Also, there's a lot of support groups. This is a disease that it's not only physically, or, oh, you don't eat a lot of sugar because your sugar levels go up. No, it doesn't only affect your sugar, it affects all your body. It affects your eyes, you can go blind, you get glaucoma. It affects your heart, you can have a heart attack because of this. It affects your kidney, it affects everything, right? So it's just a very deteriorating disease that needs to be um, well controlled in order for it to stay at bay and creating damage on your body that will affect you in the long run. A few things that they normally do for people who have diabetes. I don't know if you guys ever seen one. This is my grandma's. Again, she gave me permission. This is her glucometer and her test strips and her little pen where she puts her little lancets where she pokes her finger in order to check her sugar. With this, she checks her sugar several times a day, and does the proper medication that her doctor recommended for her. And we try to keep a balanced meal. We try to keep her stress level at a minimum. We try to keep her active. She's 94, so she can't go out running and jogging, right? But we do have her walk around. We go walking with her wherever she wants. If she wants to go walking outside, we go with her outside. If she wants to walk around the house in the living room, create several laps around the table, we go with her. Um, Different things that we can do, but I think the main key is understanding the disease and the type of disease that that person is being diagnosed with would be a great help, not only for them but to you, because for example, if they have a low glucose level, that is as much critical as having a very high glucose level. So you have to know what to do when these situations happen. So it's important to know and realize what would be the emergency plan. Okay, their sugar drop. What do we do? Okay, their sugar's too high. What do we do? Who do we call? What are the steps? Always have a plan. Always have a plan. Always have a medication list. That's what was recommended by my grandma's doctor, to always have a medication list wherever she visits the most. For example, one have here at home, one have at my home because she comes and visit me often, one have at her other daughter's home because she goes there often. And that way, if we have any questions of her medications that are due at that certain time, we know what she needs to be taking, because being 94, she sometimes can forget things or doesn't remember where she left a certain medication. So we got to keep track of that, so that you have to have that support system. That support system is very important, as much for that person who's being diagnosed as for the rest of the family and the people who help take care of them. Hopefully, like I said, I have attached some websites that give you great information on what this disease is, what you can do to help, and also a support group link, which there are many, many. You can find them in your local area. You can ask your doctor. There are diabetes educators that can help you plan meals. There are nutritionists that can help you talk to your doctors about this. They can recommend all sorts of stuff to help you and your loved ones be well taken care of and healthy as much as possible. Thank you for watching, and I hope this helps at least one person, and that would just be great.